Hey all yous, yuns and y'alls, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at the picker wheel once again. We're going to be selecting another few commanders based on what they are. We will, in fact, be probably doing more than 3 today. So if you're not interested in seeing all 3, I will have timestamps in the comments below if you want to pick your favorites. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the wheel. We have landed on Imskir, the Iron Eater. Imskir, the Iron Eater is an 8-drop demon, that's a 5/5 in black and red, that has, when it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is half of the number of artifacts you control rounded down, and it also has the activated ability of pay 3 and a red and sacrifice an artifact and have Imskir deal damage equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value to any target, meaning you can pick anything in play and turn an artifact into damage as long as you pay his cost. Not to mention all that, but Imskir also has affinity for artifacts, meaning this spell costs 1 colorless less to cast for each artifact you control. Let's not forget that, because that can be very important, and half the reason people enjoy this commander in the first place. First and foremost, do I believe Imskir, Iron Eater, is in fact a CDH viable commander? And the answer is a resounding yes from me. The reason why, beyond just seeing this in a few games already of CDH, especially when the set came out, is Imskir is a lot of things. It does a lot of stuff, and it has a lot of keywords, and it's in just the right colors to do this exact kind of thing. It has tutors in black, it's got all the red shenanigans, it has lots of combo outlets in red and in black, and it has card draw built into the commander along with cost reduction, meaning we can essentially set up to make sure this thing never costs any mana. This both has and is an outlet for once we've made our combo go, meaning we can really turn the game off once we've started doing the thing. Following Imskir, we have Kudo, King Among Bears. Kudo, King Among Bears, is a green and white 2-drop bear legendary creature that is a 2/2 that has the ability other creatures have base power and toughness 2/2 and are bears in addition to their other types, meaning this doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody. While there are some very clear lines in terms of just turning our creatures that our opponents control into weak nothings, we have other strategies in kind of a higher power / competitive sense that we can be abusing this with. The first thing to consider about this commander is there will always be even trading, meaning attacks become a lot more difficult. The other thing about this commander is in white, there are a lot of cards that are able to give our opponents -- on their creatures. Especially, and notably most of all, is Elesh Norn, Grand Cenobite, the 7-drop with Vigilance that gives all creatures we control +2/+2, and all creatures our opponents control -2/-2, meaning we are able to functionally lock our opponents from having a creature state while we can beat them to death with our own creatures. Now, do I believe this makes Kudo a CEDH viable commander? And I would say maybe, and I would say maybe plus. And the reason I would best describe this as a viable fringe commander up to potentially a viable competitive commander has to do with our unfairness is really just making the board completely fair, meaning we're prepared to deal with completely fair strategies where our opponents will not be. And being able to set these kind of things up where we're going to be playing something in a completely fair realm may in fact end up shooting us in the foot. So with the proper pilot, you could very reasonably navigate this thing into a W. However, this will be a bit of a challenge, and your main win conditions will either be locking the board or winning through combat, and both of those things are pretty hard to do in competitive. So if you're up for the challenge, take it. But I would say Kudo is a firm fringe or just on the line of being completely competitive viable. Alrighty, next up we have... it appears to be 6. Yep, 6. Just like the number, that's it. Alrighty, let's jump right in. 6 is a 3-drop mono green 2/4 legendary creature tree folk. And it has reach, and the ability that says when it attacks, you mill 3, and you may select a land from one of the 3 cards milled this way and put it to your hand. And it also has the most important line of text on the card. As long as it is your turn, non-land permanents you control in your graveyard, I should say that are in your graveyard, have Retrace. And just a reminder, Retrace says you may cast the cards with Retrace from your graveyard by discarding a land in addition to paying their other costs. Meaning if we have something in the graveyard that is a creature, for example, if we pitch a land and then pay its mana cost, it just comes right in play. It's a very, very powerful effect. Do I believe 6 is a viable competitive commander or a card in competitive in general? And that is a resounding yes. Better minds than I have figured out that this card is completely busted and bonkers. So I've liked this deck so much, I've personally built a deck around it. I will link it in the description below if you'd like to see it. Otherwise, this commander is 100% viable and competitive. And if I had to pick out anything that was my favorite combo in the entire deck involves a card called Groundskeeper and a card called Lion's Eye Diamond. Moving right along, we are going to be moving on to... it looks like Phelia, Exuberant Shepherd. Alright, Phelia, Exuberant Shepherd is a 2-drop, 1 and a white, 2/2, legendary creature dog with flash, and when it attacks, exile up to one other target non-land permanent, and at the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it, being the permanent you exiled, enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Phelia. Do I think Phelia is a CDH commander? And this is the umpteenth time of recording this, because I've been kind of torn. I believe that in one hand, this has the potential to really be good at locking the board against your opponents. However, I also see that this, if it becomes commander dependent, will do practically nothing. So that's my thing. I think the deciding factor is going to be its color identity, which is just mono white. If Phelia was white plus, I would say this is definitely a viable competitive commander. However, being in mono white does really put a damper on this thing's potential, sadly. Though it is cute and it is a very good card that can be run in a lot of other decks, I would say this is definitely better in the 99 of most decks than as the commander. So that's my final say on this, sadly. Phelia is not a CDH commander. Next up, we are going to be rolling for... it appears to be Genku, the Future Shaper. Oh boy. Genku Future Shaper is a 4-drop, white and blue, or 2 and 1 white and 1 blue, Moonfolk Wizard, legendary creature, that is a 2/5. It has the ability of whenever a non-token permanent you control leaves the battlefield, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn, and you create a token with the selected characteristics when this ability triggers. A 2/2 white fox with vigilance, a 1/2 blue moonfolk with flying, or a 1/1 black rat with lifelink. Finally, it has the ability of pay 3 colorless, a white and a blue, 5 mana total, to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Let's just get right down to brass tacks. Do I think Genku is a potential CDH commander? And I would say that's a solid maybe. And it's not maybe plus, it's not maybe minus, it is definitely a maybe. It's definitely fringe viable. It does enough stuff. It allows you to build your deck in such a way where it's not asking you to run a bunch of bad cards. However, its payoff seems to be a little weak, sadly. Does this commander have some sort of combo that it can win with? Yes. Is it asking you to build a lot of bad cards? No. But are the cards you're having to run to make the commander functional weird? Yes. Alright, we got 2 left. Let's see what we end up rolling. And it looks like Jyoti? Moag Ancient? Gosh, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is a green and blue 4-drop, 2/4 legendary creature elemental that when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 green 4S Dryad land creature token for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. These tokens are affected by Summoning Sickness because they are creatures. I just made sure to remind you that. And at the beginning of each combat, land creatures you control get +X until the end of turn, where X is Jyoti's power. Since we've been trying to move a little bit quicker now because we're just going to finish out the original list of the picker, Jyoti is viable in CDH as a commander. Now, it is a fringe viability because it is a strategy that is, again, it's very hard to deal with because for the most part, It's very hard to get rid of the 4S Dread tokens unless somebody is trying to set up a Orcish Bowmaster kind of setup where they're clearing the board with the OBM, or they're doing mass board wipe stuff, in which case the deck is still going to eventually rebound because you're just going to keep making more 4S Dreads. It's just what's going to happen. However, this commander got completely overshadowed in Modern Horizons 3 by him. The takeaway from all this is essentially that Jyoti is a valuable commander in CDH, but not a valuable legendary outside of it, at least in my opinion. It is a really interesting deck, if nothing else. It's not a beginner-friendly deck, however, this is a very powerful strategy that once it gets going is really, really hard to stop. Finally, on our list of commanders today, we have potentially the edgiest demon we've ever seen somehow. It's Shilgengar. I don't know how they're going to reconcile the Gengar thing, but whatever. Sire of Famine is a 3 and 2 black, 5-drop, 6/6 flying elder demon that has sacrifice another creature, create a blood token. You can sacrifice an angel. If an angel is what you sacrificed, create blood tokens equal to its toughness instead. And you can pay 3 hybrid white-black mana, or 3 white or black, and sacrifice 6 blood tokens to return every creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, and they become vampires in addition to their types. Finality counters, just as a reminder, would say if a creature would die with a finality counter on it, it gets exiled instead. So this deck is going to look to probably remove those finality counters. I'm sure it's not going to be very difficult. However, something to be aware of is the Reanimator strategy is being countered very heavily by modern stacks. So, do I think this is a CDH viable commander? No. Sadly, I don't. I think that this thing is going to be shut down really fast, and what you're trying to do is very, very clear from the beginning. And whether or not you're going to be fast enough is really going to be a challenge for you because you don't have red, you're in white-black, so you're going to be playing stacks yourself, meaning a lot of the cards that you are going to want to run may end up shooting you in the foot more often than anything else. Just to note, though, you can instant speed run a stacks board, so there are viable builds for this to be played in competitive. However, I would say be careful and be cautious with this, because this will end up being something where you may end up shooting yourself in the foot more often than anything else. So be patient with this deck. I believe it is viable in at least Fringe, if not competitive itself, but I think for now, in my just instant read, I'm going to say no. Before I yap any longer on this commander, because I think it's just funny, and I really haven't paid much attention to it until now. Thank you all so much for watching. Pragmatic out. Peace! Just a little secret tidbit for y'all at the end. If you stuck around through the entire video, you can leave your comment of your favorite commander and see if it's viable and competitive in the comment section below, and they will be added to the next wheel. So drop a comment, say hi, and thanks for watching.